Hi, Daniel.
Adam, hi.
Let's do the roll call first then. Max Vuber, Manor Solomon and Dan James. What's the latest on that, please?
Yeah, sadly we have a few injury updates and also some problems during this week. Manor Solomon is out for this game. Obviously he had some back problems that have resulted into also some problems with his hamstring. So for that he will definitely miss this game. I hope to have him back at least for the perhaps even last game before the international break. At least perhaps even for the Norwich game we will see, but he will definitely miss out this game. Also, Daniel James is obviously still out. I spoke about that. It's perhaps just realistic that he will be back after the international break. Yes, if he's available in one of the games before, it would be even more or less like a bonus. But again, I expect him just to be back in contention after the next international break. Max Weber will also miss this game because there was a setback also in training already last week on Friday in our final session before the last game. That was also the reason he was not in the match day squad. Yes, still some ongoing problems with his knee. So our medical department tries everything to make sure that we find a solution in a conservative way, and we'll definitely also find out in the next days, because we try to push him back into team training, and we are still hopeful that there is a chance to do it in this conservative way. But we definitely need to make a decision also in the next days, because we can't go on too long if this doesn't work and he can't return back to team training in the next days. And probably our choice is then just a surgery. And if this would be the case, obviously we will miss out for a few weeks. But again, we are still hopeful that there is a chance to bring him back in the early stage of next week into team training. But he will definitely miss also this game. In addition to that, we had a few problems after last game. So Pascal Storik was struggling a bit with his adductors. Junior Firpo, also some problems. He missed the first part of this week. Junior was back in training today. So if the body doesn't react in a negative way, then I expect him to be available. Also Patrick Bamford missed the training session yesterday after he got a hit on Tuesday in training. But the same like with Junior, he was back on the training pitch today, so I'm also pretty optimistic that he will be available also for the game if the body doesn't react right now. The biggest question mark behind Pascal Struik, because even today he was not able to train. There is definitely a chance, and I'm still, I would say, carefully optimistic. But in order to be also available, he needs to train tomorrow in our last session. And we try everything to bring him back on the training pitch tomorrow, and we are still a bit carefully optimistic, but it's more or less also the final test for him, if he's actually available or not. So sadly a few problems during this week, but it is what it is, and we have to adapt to it.
Yeah, injuries happen to every squad, Daniel. You seem to have a few issues at the moment. Yeah. Can I ask you, what have you changed with now that Henry McStay is in charge of, if you like, head of medicine? And have you changed any of the regime in training this year to suit? Have you come to a different way of working at all?
No, not too much. If I'm honest, obviously after each and every season, you also review what has happened in terms of injuries. If there are, for example, muscular injuries, what you can perhaps avoid a bit, or are there many contact injuries or whatever. But even last season, we were pretty happy with it, because I think in terms of training load, it was definitely one of the highest years, so the highest load since years in this club, and the lowest injury percentage since years. So overall, we're also pretty pleased with this. And also I would say it's the pre-season, also the beginning of the season. We were in a really good place. So we had even games where no one was injured, and I hardly had this during my time as a manager. But yes, when there is lots of load, for example, Max Weber was injured on international duty for his country, and he came back injured, and since this moment he was not back in the game for us. So it's just also unlucky and something what you are not in control about. And sometimes you have to accept this. So for that, I'm very happy with our medical department right now. Of course, it's a bit tricky, especially with Max injury, because there's no guarantee that it works in this conservative way. I think it's the right choice to try everything to bring him back in this conservative way. But if there isn't a surgery in the end, we probably have to accept that he will miss out for a few weeks. With all the others, due to the load in this league and the many games and 46 league games, cup competitions, international duties, I'm quite happy so far with the outcome. And hopefully. It's just a bit an exception that we have a few problems during this week, hopefully a bit better from next week on.
And I know these sorts of issues over players sort of ties you when it comes to selection, Daniel, but you've been asked loads about Joel Pirot, loads about Matteo Joseph. In an ideal scenario with a player, how long do you give them before you think, right, I've got to make a change now, without hurting their confidence or breaking their confidence?
I wouldn't judge it also so strict in terms of right now you have to deliver, otherwise you're on the bench or not even the squad. You also change sometimes also due to the loads. Yeah, right now when I think about, we have 3 games within 6 days, so I'm pretty sure that not many players will play 270 minutes plus at a time. So you have to mix it up at times in order also to have sometimes some fresh legs on the pitch. And it also sometimes due to the tactical necessity. So sometimes you need a bit more like a bit more physical striker, or you need a bit more pace or a bit more technique. So it depends also on the opponent. Of course, there's always also a pressure to deliver in each of your positions. So you can't afford, if you want to play for a club like Leeds United, to be there with 10 poor performances in a row. So it's always the same. So you have to grab your chances. But for example, also when we speak about striker position, a bit like Matteo Joseph, I'm happy with this season so far, because his workload is great. He was also in the last game with an important assist for Laji Ramazani, had overall good performance, I know, so was a striker myself. It's always good for the confidence, the rhythm, and also for the mood and the judgment of a striker if you score a few goals. But overall, I have to say, he was impressive in pre-season. He has scored an important goal against Hull, was also on the score sheet for his country, has already, I think, 3 assists under his belt. So overall, for me, it's not like that my striker has to win the Golden Boot. I have just one target. I want to be successful with my squad, and whoever scores, I'm happy with it. And for that, there is no pressure somehow. So I always speak about, in the end, will definitely lead. If you want to be ambitious, between 30 and 40 striker goals. And if just one striker scores his 30 goals or 35 goals, or we share it more or less than equally, I'm also happy with it. So it's more or less like, it's not an individual battle against each other. Also, when I speak about my strikers, for example, Matteo, Patrick, Joel, who play a lot in this roles, they're really good, if you want to label it competition, but more like a togetherness, and they are greedy together to score goals, and they help each other and give some hints and some tips. And there will be also games when they are perhaps with 2 or even all 3 on the pitch. So for that, we all as a group want to be successful, and it's not like too much one against each other.
Last one for me, Daniel. Coventry took 4 points off Leeds last season. Looking at their manager, he's been at a long time. I think it's the 3rd longest serving behind Weaver at Harrogate Town and Pep at Man City. He's had relegations, he's had playoff final defeat, he's had a really unlucky FA Cup semi-final defeat. But is the lesson that if clubs stick with managers, it tends to come good? Longevity works. Is he the best example of that?
Not always, just when you have the right manager. So this is important. Yeah, if the quality of the manager and is not great, or it doesn't fit to the club, then it makes also no sense to say, come on, we just give him time and time and time and time. You have to be convinced of the manager. That's quite important. But I have to say, I'm totally convinced of the quality of Mark, because I always rate him as a top manager in this division. He's there with so much experience, and also when I judge what he's doing, so he more or less always delivers in nearly each every season, and he is a really quality manager and a top solution on this on this share. And also, like, when I judge Coventry, I think what he has done, he has developed this club into a club who always comes close to promotion to the Premier League. So they finished either in the top 6, were even in the playoff final, or close to the top 6. Then it's always the same. Then he loses his best players. He has to rebuild, and quite often they have also a bit like this season, a bit slower start, but then his quality shines. The longer he works with his team, the better and the more competitive they are. It happens every season with them, and they always come pretty close, either to finish in the top 6 or close to the top 6. So I will also I expect them also like to finish then in a much better position than they are, and they had the same also during this summer. They lost also some quality players, like in the season before. He always has to replace key positions, and he does always the same with his quality, with his experience, with his calmness. He develops the squad and rebuilds. It's never easy when you always have to replace your key parts, but in terms of what he does, how he replaces then also some bigger clubs or financially more potential clubs are capable to buy his best players, and then he finds another solution. I'm full of respect, and I'm pretty sure they will also be one of the competitors in order to finish in the top 6. So I'm not distracted by perhaps I wouldn't label it poor start. They are already also on 5 points, but in terms of the league position, of course they want to be in a better position, but I'm 100% sure they will do the same what they do since years. They develop the squad. Mark with his quality will develop the squad, and then we'll finish in a really good position. So I expect a difficult game for us.
I know you're not here to win a Nobel Peace Prize, but when you go through similar things to other managers, Mark Robins incredibly, seemingly under criticism at the minute. Does camaraderie or relationships develop between you and other managers?
That's really difficult because there's not much time. Of course, there are a few managers in this business I'm also pretty close with. I don't like to speak too much about this too much in public, but it's also difficult because if you want to be successful in this job, then you also have to be a bit like a workaholic, and you have to be focused during these times when you're in charge, and there's not much time for much private contact, also like with the distances, sometimes here and there, a little telephone call, but sometimes you think, okay, the manager always meet for having a coffee or a piece of cake or sometimes a dinner or whatever. There's literally no time to do this, so there's rarely time to do this with your family or your closest, and then not even with managers. For that, it's always difficult. So I think the time after your career, or perhaps the time when you're not in charge and you recharge a little bit, this is more or less the time when you are even a bit closer in touch. But of course, there's also like with some managers you feel a bit close and you share perhaps even a bit closer relationship. But it's also quite rare and also not that easy on this level.
When it comes to injuries, do you have players who you know will play through a certain level of pain, and other players who cannot focus quite as much on their game when they've got a niggle?
Yes, I think it was 30 years ago. It will be also the same in 30 years. There are some softer players on the pitch and some guys who are a bit more warrior mentality and strong. Depends also a bit on the position, I have to say. So if you are perhaps even a creative player who needs to express himself and also to play with freedom, then even a little problem, even if whatever his old boots are broken or something like this, kills a set. And sometimes you have perhaps a bit more solid defender who can even deal with a little bruise or something like this. So yes, there are differences, and the best is always like that. You want to have strong players, also from their mentality, strong players. But it's also like when you have, for example, a muscle injury, like a muscle tear or whatever. It's not like, okay, come on. Nowadays you just wrap it and then you go through. So it's more like these times are gone, because you have to deliver on a top level, also in terms of pace, and without being able to sprint, you hardly can deliver. So for that, we just also take players into the game day squad once they are at least capable to finish at least the last session before the game, and they feel 100% ready in terms of what they can do in terms of sprinting or whatever. Yes, it differs, but it's still important that they are 100% fit.
You mentioned on Saturday how hard it is to keep a player like Joel Pirro, and you want to give him more game time, but you can't, and you love his attitude. You find that he's a good team player. How do you manage somebody like Joe Gelhardt? And he's somebody who's had immense potential, been celebrated a lot in previous years, hasn't had a lot of game time. How do you manage somebody like that and keep them motivated when clearly game time is a big problem?
Yes, in general, it's one of the most difficult parts of your job, because I mentioned this several times. So each and every player wants to play each and every second on the pitch, and you're just allowed to start 11 players, and quite often we change during the game. Also, whatever, mostly even 5 times, sometimes a bit less, but mostly you are at least allowed to change 5 times. Means you have just 6 players who play now each and every second. And spoke about this from the 6 players, so sometimes they feel 1 or 2, they play on the wrong position, or they're criticized too much. You just have 2 or 3 players within the squad who are just 100% happy with you, and all the others, so all the other, whatever, 23, 25 players in the squad are between, manager's okay, or he's more or less, I want to bite him in his neck. So that's the reality of the manager. But this is why I came to this quote. I'm not there to be there with Nobel Peace Prize. So, of course, we try to create unity and togetherness and good spirit, and also speak about the importance that we need each and every player. And it doesn't matter if you're 90 minutes on the pitch or just 19, or sometimes just 9 minutes or 9 seconds. So whenever you get the chance, give really everything. And also when we spoke, for example, about Joe Pirro, he's for me a key player. So he has started many games for us, but there are also a few games when he just comes from the bench, and it will be also the same in the future. So I'm sure he will start many games for us, but there will be also occasions when he has to come in from the bench. And you need also players from the bench who can turn the momentum of the game and can turn the game and score from coming from the bench. Because if you bring just players in who have no effect, then it's tricky, of course, for a player who is not that much in the spotlight or didn't have that much game time. It's difficult. But it's always the same. You have then to work even more focused and concentrated in training to be ready when your chance comes. And this is on this level. It's not like share equally game times to be there with winning the Nobel Peace Prize. It's more or less like when you get a chance, then you also can't argue, okay, I'm not in my rhythm. I'm there without confidence or whatever. When you get on this level a chance, you just have to grab it, and this is how this business works on this level. And each and every player who is with us has my trust and my backing, and also my work, and not just my work, also the work from all the coaching staff to improve and to make them better. And they just have to be ready when the chance comes, and if it's a cup game, or if it's a few minutes in the league game, or perhaps then also start in the league game, and then you have to grab your chance. Yeah, and then you have the chance also to deliver and to claim your spot within the game. But if you want to play on this level and want to be famous and earn lots of money and play for a big club like Leeds, and you also have to expect that there's lots of competition and also some other proper players, and sometimes it's also not that easy to be always in the starting lineup. Yes.
If Pascal does miss Saturday's game along with Max, the assumption is that Ethan might move back there. So how encouraged are you by how well Joe and Ethan played together last season, if that's the solution you do have to find on Saturday?
Yes, we would also have other options. I'm pretty pleased at the moment how James De Bayo, for example, develops. Yes, it's always a proper solution also to play with Joe and Ethan. We don't have to speak about. They were impressive last season, and we have also other good midfield options. So it's definitely also a possible scenario. But at the moment, step by step, I'm still carefully optimistic that Pascal, who was also a pretty important key player for us in all topics. So last 5 games we have just conceded 1 goal, and in all 5 games we haven't conceded 1 goal when our central defenders were behind the ball. So for that, I'm still carefully optimistic and still hopeful that he will be capable to play. But of course, we need to be prepared also for some other solutions. It's a pity that Max is not available, because he's also a quality player. But if they both would miss, Pascal and Max, then we definitely have some solutions. And whatever we go then for, I would back my players also to deliver also in this way.